Well, good morning and a warm welcome, and thank you for keeping it right here on Sunrise at Sea. The conversation on the Twitter jabs continues. And of course, today, this morning, we're looking at the future of SMEs in Uganda. Now, why it's important, of course, you must know that it is the beginning of a new financial year. What does that mean? That means that the national budget 2022-2023 has been read, and that was read yesterday, of course, as well as the fact that the President, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, did deliver the State of Nation address. Well, today, as we look at the future of SMEs in Uganda, it should also be important to note that small and medium enterprises at least employ more than 2.5 million Ugandans, and of course they advocate for also 90% of employment in the private sector. Well, joining me at the center of this conversation is none other than Mr. Samuel Ochanya, and he is the marketing manager of Let's Go Uganda. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Sivan. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much.
So first things first, I need to understand, what is the mandate of Let's Go?
Okay, yeah, so Let's Go Uganda Limited is a private enterprise. It's a private business. It's part of the Let's Go Group. Let's Go Group is born out of Botswana. We are in 11 countries, and basically what we do is we provide credit to mainly government employees, and then the small and medium enterprises here in Uganda. Yeah.
Okay. So what exactly, apart from just looking at your mandate, when you look at SMEs in Uganda, what is your take? Are we thriving? Are we doing well?
That's a very good question. So let me start by laying a few basics or foundation, if I could say. What exactly is an SME? Okay. You know, that's very important to understand. So across the world, different people define it in different ways, but because we're in Uganda, I'll define it the way the Uganda Investment Authority defines an SME. So there's SME and MSME. Yes. MSME being the micro, small, and medium enterprises. So Uganda Investment Authority says a micro enterprise is defined. An enterprise is defined on 3 levels. 1 is how many people you employ. 2, what is your annual turnover? How much do you sell in a year? And then 3, how much capital do you employ? So the most common parameter that we'd use to measure is how many people do you employ. So if you employ less than 5 people, less than 4 people, then you're considered micro. If you employ up to 50 people, then you'd be considered small. And if you employ more than those 50 up to a few hundreds, then you're considered a medium enterprise. And then eventually get into what you'd call the corporates. Okay. And in terms of how much turnover, how much do you sell in a year? If your sales are less than 12 million, then you're micro. Okay. If your sales hit 360 million, then you're medium. And as you go higher, then you qualify into the medium and corporate business. Okay. Yeah.
So now let's look at the fact, and I'm sure that you're aware, and even us were aware, because information reaching our desk is that 5 billion was earmarked. Of course, that is to cater for the arrears. 500 billion, I beg your pardon, was earmarked for clearing SMEs. And of course, this is in regard, and I saw they came out and highlighted and said that services had been rendered to government, but government hadn't been able to come up and pay. So give us an update.
Okay, so I know across the world and across, even in Uganda, governments and also other development partners realize that there's a big challenge. Over the last 2 years, because of COVID, a lot of businesses were affected. Industries were closed for a while, schools, the education sector. You had tourism affected. Basically, every kind of business was affected. And therefore, they put interventions into place to make sure that these businesses are able to recover. Now, with the government putting in that amount of money, the challenge usually is who can access it. And so, whereas it is considered SMEs that will access these funds are those that have a certain kind of governance structure, which is one of the things that I would like to speak about, where challenges, the kind of challenges SMEs face. So if you are organized, for instance, there's one that UDB is doing for tourism,
yes,
the tourism sector. You need to be paying NSSF, you need to be paying your taxes, but for all intents and purposes, many of our small businesses are not organized to that level. They are not yet registered with NSSF. They are not paying NSSF for their employees. So whereas there is that intervention in place, it is going to be able to cater for those SMEs that are organized and are well structured. But there are partners also, like I know the European Investment Bank and I know MasterCard Foundation have all brought money that will now target the smaller ones. The important thing is who are the partners that they are going to use, because the European Investment Bank will not come by itself.
Yes.
It doesn't have the infrastructure to be able to identify these SMEs and give them funds. We also have MasterCard working with Private Sector Foundation,
yes,
Uganda, looking for where they can be able to put in this relief funding. So they look for partners that already have infrastructure in place, and that's where people like us come into the fray. Mm-hmm. That financial institutions already have got structures in place that are able to identify these SMEs, that are able to assess and see whether these people have the right behaviors to actually be able to repay this money, because this money is not given out for free. It has to be returned. So that money is available. I know UDB is one of those vehicles that the government is using, but other development partners from around the globe also are working with financial institutions.
Okay. So allow me to commend you for the great work that you're doing as an institution. However, as a financial aid of SMEs, what makes it hard for these SMEs to be able to actually get this sort of financial assistance that you have to offer?
So the biggest challenge that we have faced as a lender, because we do quite a bit of lending to SMEs. One, our SMEs have a challenge with structures. When somebody starts their business, if you should even start your business, you are the beginning and the end of the business. If anything happens to you, like we had cases where unfortunately some of our customers suffered from COVID and therefore they were out of business receiving treatment, the business practically collapses. Okay, so there's a challenge around the structures and management and continuity of these businesses. That is one. Number two, our records are a challenge. We do not have proper record keeping, but a lot of partners like ourselves and other institutions are pushing financial literacy so that SMEs are able to keep their records. But I cannot leave out the fact that because of the where we are operating right now, we require security. So the requirement of security actually pulls out a lot of SMEs that would ordinarily qualify. But I think we are doing some work around to ensure that we are able to assess somebody's character and ability to pay and the common 5 C's I would say in lending, and be able to negate the impact of not having collateral in place.
Okay, now still looking at the challenges, and I know you highlighted some. Among them that I did read up on is the fact that SMEs have failed to tap into continental trade. Why is that so?
So continental trade now would then have to shift from the smaller businesses to the medium ones. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we struggle with a number of things. Sometimes the challenge we have is the quality of the product that we produce. If I am interested in getting a spread for my bread or whatever, I would look to Kenya because I have seen the quality of what they produce. And so you do not trust the quality of what is in Uganda. I don't believe that is the situation, but there is a perception.
A mindset, actually.
Yes, a mindset, you put it right. There is a mindset that what comes from outside is better than what is in Uganda. And my appeal to the Ugandans right now, there's a common phrase, bubu. We must build Uganda by buying Ugandan products. So we struggle getting out there, even in the situations where we have competitive advantage in agriculture, produce, poultry, and what we find challenges because our product is now threatening what is being produced in the local markets. I wouldn't name the countries, but okay. in the countries where sometimes you find an embargo on Ugandan poultry, or you find, whereas we're supposed to be part of COMESA, opening all this agricultural produce to the rest, yes. To the rest of the geographic the neighbors that surround us. We find challenges that are kind of those trade barriers driven either by those governments trying to protect their own industries, and so we can't really break into that space. But I am very hopeful that one, with the integration that is being pushed of the East African community, with the players Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, now with DRC on board, we will definitely have a much wider market. And I think if UNBS keeps tabs on the standards of what we are producing, and then we get the ministries like Trade and the other businesses, the Uganda Investment Authority, supporting and promoting our products, we'll be able to break into this and have some significant foray into those countries.
Okay, so now that the financial year 2022-2023 has started, of course, with the reading of the budget and the State of Nation address, how can SMEs benefit from those resources that have been allocated in the different sectors?
So, for Uganda, as you would know, 70% of the employment is in the agriculture sector, and pretty much the same number is employed in that sector. Therefore, it is very important for us to recognize and get deeper into that sector to see how much you can be able to get out. I am happy with the parish development model, okay. That the Ministry of Finance or the government is pushing at this moment, because down at the bottom, down to the level of the parish, is where we see majority of these 70% of Ugandans that are employed in agriculture. A lot of them are in subsistence. So if we are able, if the government and through the structures that have been put in place is actually able to implement and administer this model as it is being promoted, we will see that this growth that we expect coming from the grassroots will push this economy to the levels that the government anticipates. We anticipate, or the central bank is projecting 4.5 to 5% growth. But if the person at the grassroots is able to generate more income, and there are markets that have been created through these structures that the parish development model is proposing, we'll have a lot more money for consumption, for production, and for all these things, which are the bedrock for economic growth that we want to see in this country.
Okay. Now, you did highlight policies such as, buy Uganda in order to build Uganda. And this is something I am very sure that SMEs advocate for, because most of the products here are actually locally made by our own people. However, what other policies are favoring SMEs in Uganda?
I think, being somebody who's in the financial services industry, we have got a liberalized industry that, whereas we have those that are regulated by the central bank, the commercial banks, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 financial institutions, we have got the tier 4 financial institutions, which have got things like the SACCOs. We have got financial institutions like us that are non-deposit taking, and we have got thousands of them thousands of them that are regulated by the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority. That in itself is a very, very, very big, a key enablement for SMEs, that you're able to access and formalize yourselves into circles. I know there's a border circle, there's a journalist circle, there are all these circles that have benefited from government funding at low costs to ensure that people are able to propel their businesses to the next level. I think the liberalization of the financial services industry is a very big factor in enabling SMEs to grow.
So yeah. I will be doing a disservice to SMEs if I did not ask this question, because for very many of them, after the reading of the national budget for the financial year 2022-2023, they feel that the budget or the government at large does not have their best interests at hand. Of course, just looking at the fact that only 500 billion shillings was allocated to them, but also looking at the fact that they still have arrears that are pending. What's your take on this?
The government is in a very difficult place. And if we, I would like to create an analogy. It's like the government is a parent in a home, okay? Now, out of the 48 trillion, 17 trillion is to finance debt, okay? So that is not money that we are going to plow into this economy for productive use. You have got other priorities that when you look long term, like the National Development Plan is looking, creating all the infrastructure that will enable the facilitation of the business environment. 500 billion is the fair-sized amount of money, depending on the people that are going to get this facility, because average loan sizes that we are able to lend that very...
But we are also looking at the fact that they are demanding over 2.5 trillion shillings, and then we are looking at the fact that only 500 billion shillings was allocated to them.
It is, we will always want more. It is never enough. That's if I'm to sound realistic, it is never enough. The 17 trillion is a very big sink in the finances of this country. Okay. And so whatever you're left with in terms of the past has got to be distributed according to the priorities that the government has set in its National Development Plan. Remember, the government has economic ambitions. It also has political ambitions. What it promised in its I've forgotten the term. What is the term when you're, and I've just forgotten what the term. It's a very common term that we use in its manifesto. Okay. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. In its manifesto, it promised certain things, and so whatever they are reading in the budget is to align and make sure that they deliver that which they promised in the manifesto. So if infrastructure and security and health are the priorities for the government, that is where they have put the majority of the money. But if we are able to receive this 500 billion without any kind of loss or leakage or misappropriation, it will help us to a great extent. But for those who are also looking for growth of their business, I wouldn't want to place the biggest challenge on that allocation by the government, because you cannot count on the government to solve all your problems. We have our own inherent problems that are causing this failure as SMEs. I'll give you an example. One of them that I mentioned is quality. Quality of what we do is a big challenge. That when you go out to look for a piece of furniture, you want to fix your doors in your house. The carpenter measures everything, and so the door is so much in dimensions. You go buy doors and you fix them. After like 3 months, the door no longer fits. It is warped. You know, it is curved. Then you go to another supplier who's non-Ugandan, and they get you a door. After 6-7 months, the door is still fitting in the frame. Where else will I go? If I am asked, where would you recommend me to buy doors from? I will recommend to the other person whose doors don't have a challenge. That's one, quality
Yes.
of what we produce. Number two is reliability. If you ask for somebody to get a job done for you, and you say, I'll get it done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is, you'll find challenges in actually meeting your timeline. If you're somebody like me who thinks it's like a domino effect, if you tell me that you're going to get this done in 1 week, I start planning for the next thing 1 week after that, you know? So I'll go like 3 or 4 steps ahead in my planning based on the 1 week you have told me. So if you don't deliver in that 1 week, it causes a problem that it affects so many, there's a ripple effect on so many things. So I will not work with somebody who has promised me my job, carpentry job will be done in 1 week and you take 2 weeks. I'll not work with you again.
That is truly understandable, but let's put it back into perspective. Let's look at the statistics first of all. The fact that SMEs employ not just 1-2 Ugandans, but they employ over 2.5 million Ugandans. Then
Yes.
they account for 90% of the sectors in the private sector. But again, if they are going ahead to deliver services and they are not being paid for them, and where I'm coming from is because earlier on in the Twitter Jabs Part 1, we're reading a tweet and we're saying the government is saying we're advocating for Buy Uganda, Build Uganda under the SMEs, but we're shooting ourselves in the foot because they're rendering services, but they're not being paid for their services. Okay. The issues might be low quality, you know, we do not deliver on time, we are not consistent and all these things. But again, for the services rendered, they need to be paid so that we're actually advocating for the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda policy.
I do agree. If somebody is owed money, they must be paid. That is without a question. They must be paid. And I know that in allocating the funds that have been allocated to settle these debts or the credit that has already been consumed, it is not sufficient. So if it is not sufficient, like we are saying at the moment, if it is not sufficient, what now? Yeah? Because if you do not get a way forward, then you remain lamenting throughout. So what people learn from this is, one, if you're not ready to pay me, I will not offer a service. I'll give you an example. Like when we are lending, there are certain employers, like if you've come, you want us to finance a contract for construction of something. If you tell me that this job that you want to do is funded by, we will not lend you money because we know that they will not pay in time. So we'll also look and say, oh, if it is EU funded, if it is World Bank funded, we know the money is there. So we can also go ahead.
So you also put your money where you know it's going to be.
We put our money where we know it's going. So that we don't come and complain that we've not been paid. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
whereas that challenge is there, and I'm not trying to defend the government over the allocation of less funds and what.
Yes.
But now that it is like that.
Yes.
Then what?
Way forward.
The way forward is the most important thing. Okay. So there's a lesson that has been learned. If somebody is not going to pay you, you don't offer the service. Simple. I mean, it's if I know that Lechego is not going to pay, why should I go and give them business? Unless I am willing to wait. Yeah, that is number one. But also number two, we have a copycat syndrome. And when I explain it, you will understand. So if you're going somewhere and you see somebody opened a boutique selling ladies' clothes, or these days I see also shops specific for wigs and what. When you see that, your mind now shifts. I wanted to start a business, so I will also open one that will compete with this one, but with probably better products. The copycat syndrome, you've not even gone to think and understand what are the dynamics involved and what is the market. We go with things that make us happy,
yes,
as opposed to solving a problem. Entrepreneurship and business creation is about solving a problem. That is number one. It's the most important ingredient. There must be a problem which you're trying to solve. Number two, people must be willing to pay for the solution. You may provide a solution for shoes getting dirty when it has rained, but no one is willing to pay for it. Therefore, you'll make losses. So identify a problem. get the solution for that problem, but people must be willing to pay for that. Those are the two major ingredients in making success, getting success as a business.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's give some advice to some of the SMEs that are watching this morning. And I know you highlighted some of the challenges that they face is actually in terms of structure, like the sole business begins with me. When I am not there, the business falls, and that is among the challenges. But also taking a look at the economic crisis situation that we are facing in Uganda as a country. So how can SMEs actually persevere during this time?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I would recommend those that are watching, number one, you must be aware that there are so many programs that have been put out there to support SMEs that are struggling. But sometimes because we prefer non-informational, can I say, engagements, not as many people are watching this program as they'll probably be watching, maybe if they are soaps or what. You get it, eh? But there are programs, okay. There are financial institutions that have actually advertised and said, we are giving out facilities to help you boost your businesses at very low rates. We have got MasterCard that is putting in about 70 billion. I think there's another one that is putting in about 100 billion for this. We have the parish development model that is coming up. Yes. We have the circles that have been put in place. We have financial institutions that have been put in, but people need to know that these things are there. So please be people that seek knowledge. Number two, even when you obtain credit, and this is one of the things that we've observed, either it's the generation, we want the get rich quick. I met Mr. Mandela just a couple of weeks ago, and I sat with him and I said, you know what, let's have a chat. I want to understand how exactly you, Mr. Mandela of City Oil and Cafe Javas and what. And it was just simple. For him, he said the number one thing that fails us as businesses in Uganda is lack of discipline. Let me give you an example. If this is a real example, there was somebody who needed money from us to do a project, to construct, maybe it was 50 million shillings to construct a project, and maybe their cut was like 10 million shillings. Okay? So when we lent the person money, they started by eating their what? The profit. You know, like saying, I'm going to buy, at that point they were buying a car. I mean, you need to first have the discipline to get the job done, and then you can start
thinking of other things.
Start thinking of other things. Yeah? So, yeah, we must have information. We must be disciplined. That is extremely important. Number three, create posterity, for purposes of posterity, create some kind of structure. You and your business should not be the same. That if I am sick today, the business has closed. Start to build capacity either in your children or workers to ensure that they are able to do to run this business as a going concern. Okay, and then lastly, I would encourage us also in terms of being reliable. Business, when you go to buy groceries and you're shopping, whether it is potatoes, and they give you this, is it a deve, which is not full.
Yes.
You get it? Which is not full, you'll never go back to that place. If you go to buy tomatoes and fresh whatever produce, and somebody is putting in some that are not, that are spoiled or whatever, that kind of lack of reliability or trust is what breaks down a lot of the SMEs, that they now do not have loyal customers. I only come back to you because maybe you're the nearest, so I have to come back, but not because of loyalty. So we have to build loyalty in our customers. Okay,
so in your perspective, besides government, where can SMEs actually get financial help and assistance?
Okay, so we have institutions like us. I am being mindful so that I don't sound like I'm trying to promote my employer, but institutions like Let's Say Uganda Limited are there to bridge that gap that businesses have. Sometimes you have got a shortage, you need working capital. For instance, we have a lot of schools that struggled. They were locked down for 2 years. We had lent them money. What we did is waived off all the interest, but then we added them extra finance, even when the number of students had dropped and what, but because we understood that they are struggling in this time, but we have come with them from a long way back. We have got to support them. So institutions like ours are able to support with credit. Yeah, credit with flexible terms. Sometimes the banks or the other institutions are a bit more stringent. We're a bit more relaxed. Yeah, we need to be able to see that you have a plan to pay us back, and that you're solving a problem and there's an off-taker for that problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we are comfortable, we make a faster decision than the more established commercial banks. We're helping quite a number of people, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So any last remarks in regard to the conversation that we just had?
Yes. I just want to encourage the SMEs out there, the business fraternity, that whereas we are going through a difficult time at the moment with high inflation, the dollar is shooting up, we should not cry over this per se, because life has got to go on. Your children you cannot tell your children that now because of this we cannot eat today. You have to find a way to go forward. So mine is just an encouragement to you that focus on that which you are doing to solve a problem. Do not be a reliable supplier, be a reliable business person, and keep your customers satisfied. When they are satisfied, they will always return to you, even when you are more expensive. But when you are reliable and that people can trust your product, they can always return to you. And I think, yeah, 2020, I believe that 2022, 2023 will be a greater year. The economy is opened up. Russia and Ukraine have sort of disorganized us a bit, but I think once that stabilizes and the prices start to go down, I believe they'll go back to the normal levels. We should have the economy, as the minister said,
getting to middle income.
Yes,
Anyway, any other information that you would like to pass on to the viewer, of course, in regard to Let's Go, any financial information that you feel is pertinent that they understand today?
Yes, so Let's Say has a variety of products that we are able to offer. We have got products that work in the agricultural sector. We have got those that do schools, help schools to build and construct. Expansion, we've got those for housing. You want to purchase land and you need some finance, and of course working capital for those who are able to do so. And soon we'll be launching a very good product available on phone, where especially the micro, will be able to apply for money instantaneously and be able to obtain it. So watch this space. Hopefully I'll be here
well,
again to demonstrate.
Okay, well, yeah. I'll use the president's words that he said, for those that have ears and listen to the wise man's words, and of course the parable of the foolish and the wise man, for those that have been able to catch this particular episode, I do hope that you are able to pick a thing or two in regard to SMEs. And if you're an SME owner, or if you're someone that is involved in the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda policy, of course, and you're under the SMEs, it's very important that you come up with a structure. The business should not start and end with you. Otherwise, today I was joined by Mr. Samuel Ochanya, and he is the head of channels, sales and marketing at Let's Go Uganda. And of course, we are looking at the future of SMEs in Uganda's economy. Otherwise, that wraps up what we had for you this morning. But also, if you want financial information, if you want financial literacy, if you want financial assistance, you now know where to go. Please do not go any further than actually asking them for assistance. Up next, we take a look at what's happening in beauty, wellness, and lifestyle. And today, Apollo Sarah takes us through Little Miss Africa. It sounds very juicy and interesting. So keep watching Sunrise at Sea and don't blink.